Come on in and welcome to this live stream. Come on in the building. Waiting for some people to come in before I start on tonight's demonstration. And tonight's demonstration is the reason why some parents afflict their pain upon their children. So I'm gonna give my subscribers a couple more minutes to come on in. Happy Saturday out there. Come on in. I'm gonna point out a couple points that I made, and then I'm gonna give you the reason behind that point. Because this is happening in a lot of families where parents afflict their pain upon their children. Well, I come to realize that in a lot of families, there is a whole lot of unresolved trauma. Many parents carry unresolved trauma from their own childhood, which can unconsciously influence with parenting. Without the proper healing of their pain, often oftentimes it gets passed down through generations. This is called intergenerational trauma. So um, a lot of times they pass the trauma down to their children, and then their children afflict trauma upon their family, friends, or um, whoever is in their life. The second point I want to point out is emotional immaturity. A lot of parents, or some of the parents, lack the emotional tools to process stress or anger in a healthy way. They don't know how to process it, and they don't know how to deal with it where it won't affect no one in the circle. They might lash out or act out their own struggles instead of communicating or regulating their emotions constructively. Um, the third point is projection of insecurity. Parents may project their fears, regret, or failure onto their children, trying to fix themselves through their children. And I know a lot of people who try to fix themselves through their children, and it don't work because a child would emulate what a child sees, and this can manifest as harsh criticism, controlled, unrealistic expectations. Then there's a lack of awareness. Not all harmful behavior is intentional. Many parents are unaware of the impact of their actions. Sometimes, most times, parents don't even see what they're doing. They don't believe the trauma and the pain they go through would affect their children. Not all harmful behavior is intentional. Like I said, many parents are unaware of the impact. They may think they being tough or doing what's best without recognizing their emotional harm. Um, I know when I was out there using and when I was out there in my drug use, I didn't think what I was going through was going to affect my kids. I really didn't think it had no effect on them at all. Um, I think I was just only hurting myself. But I found out later on, not only was I just hurting myself, I was hurting everybody who cared about me, everybody who loved me. And it was a impact that I would never forget because my children suffered just like I did. My next point is reinforcement of harmful culture norms. In some cultures or communities, harmful parenting is normalized or even praised. Corporal punishment, emotional suppression. These behavior can be passed down as traditional rather than questioned. And then I came to the sixth point, which is mental health struggles. Depression, anxiety, addiction, and other mental health issues can distort a parent's ability to provide safe, nurturing care. And that's the God honest truth. And I see in these cases that we're covering, especially in, the Nazir Harris case, a lot of them deal with mental issues. And in that Harris family, it's not one person that can realize that they struggling with mental health. Their sickness is coming from mental issues that has been passed down from generation to generation. And not one person stood up in the family to even want to seek help, knowing that their behavior was wrong, knowing what they was doing was wrong. Even if you come from a background of people who deal with trauma or some kind of sexual abuse or mental abuse or whatever, and you born into that type of family, if you don't want to be like that, I think it's your job to stand up to want to seek help so you can help our other family members. Same way in the Kimani Latif case, the grandmother is dealing with mental issues and she can't really see the fact she's dealing with mental issues. She put her issues all on everybody else but herself, started taking accountability for what's wrong with her. She inflicted pain on her children, on her grandkids, you know, um, not taking accountability for the part played in what was really going on in her situation. A lot of parents do this, and the kids, in the end, the kids suffer. Children often bear the emotional fallout or untreatment of mental issues in the household. The kids get the instinct of parents' mental issues because at a young age, child don't understand or can recognize what's really going on with the parent. So they take on whatever issues that their parents are dealing with. This brought me to point seven, power dynamics. Some parents misuse their authority to control or dominate, especially when they feel powerless in other areas of their life. The imbalance of power between adults and children can become a space where pain is inflicted because the child cannot resist or escape. When a child is locked in a person's house, not per se locked in, but child have no ability to spend or take care of themselves or provide for themselves. So by them being under the parents' roof and going by whatever they have to endure in that household, um, they can't escape it. They might run away from home, you know, and end up in more harm and then what they are being in the house. You know, for the last couple of years, we know when children going through trauma, as far as mental abuse or emotional abuse, and CPS is called, most of the time they cannot downpack or pinpoint a child mental abuse or emotional abuse. Most time they go off on physical abuse, and I always tell people most abuse is not physical. Emotional and mental abuse are the worst abuse you can have. Cause in my mind, you can heal from the scars of physical abuse, but you never can heal from the emotional or mental abuse when it's afflicted upon you. Then you have the cycle of shame and guilt. Parents may feel ashamed of their actions, which can proxidility lead to more harm if they avoid accountability. Guilt will outgrow and it can become a reason to double down on harmful behavior instead of changing it. A lot of times, parents don't take accountability for the abuse they put upon their child. They claim they're gonna be all right. They're gonna be all right. There ain't nothing wrong with it. They be all right. They be fine. So it's crazy to me because when an adult grows up and with the abuse that they have went through because of the pain that's been afflicted upon them, they take it into their adulthoods, and sometimes, most times, most often, they act out on their abuse, taking it into their relationship and afflicting abuse on their kids or their family or however, and the cycle begins and never stops. So, um, it's crazy this how this keep happening time and time again, and nobody seems to really take an inside look at how this affliction on children can cause horrible damage. Yeah, so it's a crazy it's just crazy to me um how just keep happening in our community, and nobody want to be accountable for it until the child acts out or something happens, or there's death involved of the child. Nobody want to take accountability for the part they play that brought abuse upon this child, and this child is ending up losing their life because of nobody decided to take an inside look of of the harm they was causing the children. It's too many children out in our society is becoming damaged and getting hurt because of the caregiver who's in charge of taking care of that person. Salute, Coach. Salute, Raw. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday. So yeah, I was speaking on tonight's demonstration about how parents afflict pain upon their children, and their children end up living with this affliction, not knowing that they can take it into their life and cause harm on other people because of the abuse their parents put them through. Um, it's a sad situation in our society because it's happening every day, and some go notice and some don't. And that's the reason why we on these cases now because they don't want to take accountability for the part they played to cause harm upon these kids. You know, I had talked about unresolved childhood trauma. Many a times when we go through trauma in our life as children, if we don't get the proper help, the necessary help that we need to make ourselves better, to make ourselves whole, to make ourselves complete, we grow up and we inflict that trauma onto our kids. You know, not knowing the harm it would cause them and the damage it would do to them, knowing for what we went through. Many parents was once children. They never got the love or the affection or the safety or the validation they needed when they was growing up. So, like I said, without the healing, they is dealing with open wounds. These wounds will never close until they get the proper healing. And when it get passed down, it just go from generations after generations. And then they deal with emotional immaturity. Some of them is too immature to even understand how to deal with their emotions correctly, because nobody never showed them or taught them how to deal with their emotions. I have personally, you say, I have personally gone through that, but I do understand. Yes, it's a crazy cycle, bro, and it happens over and over. And just like I was saying in before y'all came in, when I was out there using and I was, doing what I wanted to do, I always told myself I ain't hurting nobody but myself. And little did I know I was hurting everybody who loved me. I was hurting everybody, who cared something about me. I didn't know my using was going to cause harm to my children because I never took my children with me during the times I was using. So I really, really, really thought, oh no, they all right. They in a safe place. They with my dad. As long as they don't see me getting high and doing the things I'm doing, they'll be fine. But little did I know it was affliction on them. It was causing them pain because I wasn't there with them. They didn't know whether if I was okay or not. And I had to be accountable for the part I played because of that. You know, um, I was lucky enough to sit down and have a heart to heart conversation with my children after I got myself together. After I got myself clean and got a better understanding of what was going on in their life, I was able to sit down and have a conversation with them. And God blessed me to heal with my kids. God blessed me to understand the trauma I put upon my kids. Where we was able to go through some things, cry through some things, heal through some things, get through some things to really get a better understanding of what was really going on. And I had to let my kids know, addiction is a disease. You know, most times when you got the disease of addiction, it's out of our control, especially when addiction is controlling us. And I felt bad about it, but hey, it is what it is. That's what happened, and life goes on. But I bless God for today for cleaning me up and getting me on a straight and narrow path so I could be there for my kids. Now and I'm glad that my kids got to experience in some way. So when they come across something they have to deal with, then they got the tools to deal with it. They got the understanding to deal with it because of the trauma I put upon them. So, when it comes to projecting your pain upon your children, like I said, it happens in so many cases. And the sad thing I hate about the Nazir Hers case is that you have a whole house of pedophiles. I mean, a whole house, everybody just PA all over the place. You know what I'm saying? I am grateful that my parents was very balanced, but I did see addiction in my family on both sides. Fortunately, most of my cousins didn't pass on the cycle, and that's a blessing. That's a blessing, because normally in most families with addiction concern, you might not get the whole house or the whole family that's addicted. You might get a couple of them. And it's a blessing that it wasn't passed down, because this can easily be passed down. And before you know it, the whole house is addicted. Somebody addicted to this, that. But 9 out of 10, your addiction don't always have to be drugs. It could be any addiction. It could be a sex addiction, a shopping addiction, a gambling addiction, anything that you don't do in moderation and you let it overtake you is an addiction. So addiction can be identified as anything that you're not doing in moderations. And like I said, it can be passed down from one family member to the next. But if nobody don't stand up and make a change, then it become a revolving door. You understand what I'm saying? It get passed down to your children, your children. And before you know it, your whole family is caught up in addiction. And then they generalize it. They make it the norm because everybody feel just normal. They see it as normal. It become a tradition in their house because everybody is repeating the same thing. And the tradition is not always healthy. It's just repeating pain over and over that doesn't justify nothing at all. You know, I know I was hear people yelling, screaming, hollering at their kids, just going all off the charts. And then they grow up and do the same. I heard one lady was in there, she was telling me if I yelled at him, he'd get up and move. And I'm like, why you feel that way? She said, because that's how I was raised. Okay, because you was raised that way, do that mean you have to raise your kids that way? I mean, sometimes we take over some partner traits in a sense if they're good traits. But me personally, if I was brought up in a cycle of abuse or some sort of, I wouldn't want to inflict that upon my kids. You know, I raised my kids to the best of my ability. I didn't do some of the stuff that my father did, but I did some of the stuff that he did because everything my father did wasn't bad. He raised us to be law by citizens. He raised us to be strong. He raised us to be vibrant. He raised us to defend for ourselves. He raised us with morals and values or whatever. When we was wrong, he corrected us. His form of punishment wasn't always the best form of punishment, but it was he saw at the time. Every time go get a switch off the tree, or he'll grab a extension cord. Okay, yeah, fine. About but in today's society, um, these parents going overboard. They going way overboard. Some of them don't chastise their kids or discipline their kids at all. Then you have some who discipline them to the point where they not here no more. I don't call that discipline. They taking them kids out more so than anything today, and it's a bad situation. You know, I don't know. It's no book to raising how to raise your kids. It's no book to how this thing's supposed to work. But I feel like on the most part, you know, you raise your kids to the best of your ability and whatever that's consists of. But we have to stop afflicting pain upon our children because most time our children act out because of what we have put upon them. And a lot of people don't get that. A lot of parents don't see that. You know, child act out the way he be treated. You know, we have to do better in our society. We have to do better as a whole. We have to come together and bridge the gap of you know of what we are feeling and what we put on our kids to feel. Like I said before, in that hers house, you know, everybody was dealing with some type of trauma. Everybody was dealing with some kind of emotional pain. Everybody was dealing with something that nobody wanted to be take accountability for, and it's sad because it trickled down to them kids. And I hope and pray that them kids would change the way they ingested this stuff and become a better person in society because of what they had to go through as kids. I feel sorry for the kids. I don't feel sorry for the adults. I feel sorry for the kids because the kids, they shouldn't have to go through unnecessary pain, unnecessary abuse, unnecessary trauma. You know, and the most and I really pray for Janaya, Shannon's daughter, because her mother and father, she had no role model. Her grandmother, her aunt, she had no role model. And for her father to, SA her, that's traumatizing in itself. Your own dad, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, it's nothing new under the sun. Family members does this all the time. But I think if we get to the root of the trauma, if we get to the root of the pain that's causing people to do the things they doing, hopefully better, we'll have a better society. We'll have a better place to live in. Most time people don't want to do that. Most time people normalize their abuse. Most time people normalize their pain. Some people stay silent to their pain. Some people don't want to open up about their trauma and their pain. They don't want to relive the hurt. That's understandable. But sooner or later, if you don't get rid of it, you're going to afflict it on somebody else. And then it's going to be afflicted on somebody else. And then the cycle never ends. It's a sad thing we have to go through generation curses, time and time again. It's just not healthy for us as a whole human being, to deal with this type of trauma, this type of pain, this type of whew, you know thing we have to go through in society. And I think that's one of the reasons why we can't come together as a whole, because of the trauma, of the pain, of the affliction. But God said, I would deliver you out of all. He didn't say some. He said, I would deliver you out of all your afflictions. I think it's time for us to get delivered from the afflictions, because just like I said, you don't get the proper treatment, the proper healing, the proper therapy to rid yourself of what you've been through. You're going to keep passing it down. And me personally, being the mother, the grandmother that I am, I'd be damned if I want my grandkids to go through what me and my kids went through. Thank God we came through it because we got the necessary help. We got the proper treatment. We went on our healing journey because we was destined. We was you know we was on a mission because we know the family background that they knew the family background that I came from, and they didn't want to be like that. They didn't want their children to go through that. So we was on a mission. We was determined to become whole individuals in our family, opposed to my immediate family. I had other family members do the same thing. They did an intervention. They went through their little healing, whatever. Some family members still healing. Some choose not to heal. And the ones that chose not to heal, I deal with them from a distance in a way because I know they still have some trauma they have been through um that they haven't worked on yet. And it shows because every time we might have a cookout or family get together and alcohol involved, it shows up and everybody see it shows up. And that's not a good look. Because the first thing to come out their mouth is, "Oh, now that you got yourself together and you doing okay, or you think you better than me." No, it's not that I'm no better than you. It's just that I'm better than what I used to be. It's just that simple, And some family members need to understand that. They need to accept that. You can get out of whatever you in if you just open your mouth and ask for help. A closed mouth cannot get fed. Period. It's not until you open your mouth and seek the help that you know you so desperately need to be whole, to be free. So your kids can be free. The people around you can be free. They can experience your whole genuine self, without you hiding who you are. We was put on this planet to be who we are. And most time people don't even know who they are. They don't even want to even invest in knowing who they are because they're afraid to find out something they might like about themselves. So they go their whole life wearing a mask in disguise, putting on this front and not even really knowing who they are. I thank God today I know who I am and whom I am. Because I could be whole, I could be free, I could be real, I could be genuine, and it's just a blessing to be that way because I remember the times when I had to wear them masks and it just ain't worked right for me. Today I could be who I am and not feel no regrets. I love who I am today and I thank God for who I am today. So if you out there, you come across this live, let's understand you have to stand in your truth. You have to be who you are. Stop afflicting pain upon your loved ones if you're going through a traumatic trauma or something. Get the help that you need. Seek the help that you need. In the end, you will be happy with seeking that help and going through the necessary changes that you have to go through to become whole. It's nothing like a whole, wholesome person who can stand in their truth and be real about who they are, without enduring trauma, pain, affliction in their life. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have a life free, life. No, we still going to experience everyday life. We going to go through whatever happens in life. It's going to bring us a little pain. It's going to bring us a little, a little this, a little that. But at least you'll have the tools to navigate through it. At least you'll have an understanding how to stand in it. At least you could be better and whatever come before you. You know, you'll know how to deal a little better without causing any pain or harm upon anybody while you're going through life situations. Life is gonna be life no matter how we look at it. You know, life gonna do what life do. It's up to us how we respond to it and what we do while life doing what it's doing. You know, things happen for a reason. And I believe, you know, most times it's how we respond to it when they happen. You know, I tell you, I have been dealt a lot of crazy hands in life. Some hands I wish I could throw back out. But what I learned is I had to sit and learn how to play the hand. Once I played the hand that life dealt me, I have a better understanding how to deal with whatever come in my life, no matter what it is. You know, I don't jump off the hoop no more. I don't I don't worry. I don't, you know, go through the motions. I just, try to sit down and sort out how to get through this. What I'm gonna do to get through this. I pull out my coping skills. You know, I keep it front of my mind. If I got through that, I know I can get through this. If he got me through that, I know he gonna get me through this. If I just hold on, obey, trust in him, I know I can get through this. Because there's nothing out there that I can't overcome that what I not already overcome. You know, cheating myself out of two death, not done, not him letting me die, giving me the breath to go on in spite of what I was going through, in spite of my pain. He gave me life. I just had to live it. Not just exist in it, but live it. And live it the best of my ability. See, I'm a fighter. I'm not gonna fold. I like to go in and challenge. I love challenging. You know, uh, and I hope one day, I can see things different in our communities. I can see different changes in other people's lives. I can see us coming together as a society as a whole. I pray that that happen one day. So with that, you know, um, I wish you all out there the best. Please like, subscribe, and share. I'm trying to build up my channel, trying to get some support here. Um, I be on social media, different platforms, and I see more negative stuff getting more comments and likes than anything. But when you throw something out there positive, people kick it to the side. You know, I remember when people used to thrive off the positive things in life, doing what's right, doing what's positive. Now it's more than of the negativity, you know, negativity, you know, um, the bad stuff, the worst stuff. People thrive off that. How I just don't understand how people can thrive off negativity opposed to something positive. Um, I'm gonna use what I know to the best of my ability, and I'm gonna keep on doing these lives, regardless. Because I know somebody out there going to hear what I'm saying and it's going to resonate where you at. Until then, I will catch you on the next. So turn on your notification. Stay blessed. Stay humble. Until I see you again. Peace. Salute.